Well, school's out and summer's here, so what better time for a summer camp slasher flick? Let's review The Burning. The Burning stars Brian Matthews, Leah Aris, and is directed by Tony Malum. So guys, first off, I just want to say I love Shout Factory. I love what they do with all these old slasher flicks, old horror flicks, and as a matter of fact, today, John Carpenter's The Thing went on pre-order for Shout Factory. They're actually putting out a deluxe edition. This thing looks like it's going to be beautiful. It's going to have a new, I believe, 2K scan, new special features. They just go all out. But one thing I love too is they always give you this brand new custom cover art, and then they always give you the original poster art too, which is really nice. But The Burning is one requested review that I get a lot. So I threw it in last night and I figured, hey, let's go ahead and give it another watch before I review it. And I've been looking forward to reviewing this one actually. I love summer camp slasher flicks. And the three that I know of, that most people know of, are Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp, and of course The Burning. Now I'm sure there's more because there are a million slasher flicks that happened in the 80s. But those are the big three. You know, it's really debatable as to which ones are the best, to tell you the truth, because they're really so different. But The Burning is about a character named Cropsy, and at the beginning of the movie, these kids, they play this really mean trick on him, and an accident happens and he ends up getting set on fire. And so we jump forward 5 years, he's in the hospital, and right away you can tell that the practical effects in this movie are gonna be top notch because his arm just pops right out of the bed, and it's probably the most gruesome burn effects that you will ever see on a forearm. Just looking at Cropsy's forearm is scary, so you can imagine what his face looks like. But I like that they were realistic in saying, hey, this guy's not gonna be able to jump right out there and get revenge. No, if you've been burned that bad, it's gonna take quite a while, even years, to fully recuperate, and that's what he does. He spends 5 years recuperating, and then he comes back to the camp and he just starts killing people. Now, Cropsy's motivations are kind of a problem for me because these kids really, they've done nothing wrong. You know, they're just a victim of circumstance, and Cropsy, he might as well take his revenge on somebody. And before I get into the pros and cons, let's talk about the backstory of this movie a little bit. I had never seen The Burning until recently. Really, I'd never even heard of it. And then Scream Factory or Shout Factory started putting out all these classic movies, and a lot of these titles I'd never heard of. One of them was The Burning, and I became really curious because I did a little research on it, and I found out that it was one of the big three camp slasher movies. And it really has a reputation for practical effects because the great Tom Savini, who did the first Friday the 13th, this was the next movie he did. And so right away I was thinking, hey, if Tom Savini did this, then I'm definitely watching it. Also, the Weinsteins, who created Miramax, this was their first movie. You know, this was the way to get into the business, to do a horror movie, because horror movies are really cheap. And they've even stated that the script for The Burning was actually written before Friday the 13th. And really, if you break it down, aside from the camp setting, the two stories are really different. At least as far as, you know, motivations of the killer goes. And also, the first Friday the 13th really is a whodunit. It is a whodunit. And The Burning, it's not a whodunit. You know exactly who the killer is right away. They set that up. Also, there are a lot of up-and-coming actors in this movie. This was the first movie, actually, for Fisher Stevens, for Jason Alexander, for Holly Hunter, and I believe there's even a few more in there. And that's one thing I do like about this movie. The characters are likable. Recently, I did a review on the remake of Friday the 13th, and I talked about how those characters are just the worst, the most annoying. Just think about when you went to high school and think about the people that you really just hated the most and put them all in a slasher movie. That's the way the remake of Friday the 13th was. But there was something about the 80s where they were just able to nail down characters because there was still an innocence to them, even if they were promiscuous. Okay, now let's talk about the kills in The Burning because really this is the best part of the movie. All the kills are really great, really graphic, even more graphic than the first Friday the 13th, really. And that was a problem for getting this movie distributed in a lot of areas because it is really graphic. And I also like the way that these kills play out, because oftentimes when you think there's going to be a kill, there's not, and vice versa. And then sometimes the kills are just completely surprising in the number of people being killed and the way they're killed, and it's really kind of shocking. There's one particular scene in this movie that's called the raft scene, and I don't want to give anything away, but that is easily the most memorable scene of the movie. If you take Sleepaway Camp, and the last scene in that movie is the one that everybody just raves about. The raft scene in The Burning is the same way. Not for the same reason, of course. Not for the same reason. Okay, now let's talk about Cropsey. I believe Cropsey is my biggest con for this movie. I really don't think he's the most memorable slasher killer out there. He's pretty forgettable, actually, because he's just really, at the end of the day, he's a burn guy. He's a burn victim, and he's getting revenge. But you take characters like Jason, like Michael Myers, like Freddy Krueger, and like Pinhead even. They all have something that is signature about them, something that reaches out and grabs you. And really the thing that grabs you in The Burning is the kills themselves. But as far as the characteristics of the killer, they're just not that interesting. But everything else around the killer is just great in my book. I love The Burning. It is a solid slasher flick. I really enjoy the characters in this movie. I really enjoy the kills. And I really enjoy what Tom Savini did with the practical effects. So for that, I'll definitely give The Burning a purchase worthy. It is a fun slasher flick. It's one that I'll watch very often. So anyway, what are your thoughts on The Burning? Looking forward to hearing them. And guys, I just gotta say thank you so much again for all the requested reviews. My list really is huge now. My cup runneth over, and I owe all that to you guys. You guys constantly support Drumdums. I really appreciate that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Drumdums. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And Drumdum out.